Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of this podcast brought to you by LetHub, where we take a deep dive into the prop tech and the rental housing market industry. To get started, my name is Rosie. I'm a customer success analyst at LetHub, and joining me today is Claire Flewelling Wyatt, a managing broker at Pemberton Holmes. How are you doing, Claire?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
No, happy to speak with you. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what Pemberton Holmes is all about?
Sure. So I have been in the business for about 20 years. I actually really started out in the business as a receptionist at a company in Calgary and moved over to real estate and then came back to property management in 2005 when I joined Pemberton Holmes. I've been with this company for 17 years. And I've sort of been able to do all the different jobs that are required from a manager. So I've done everything from processing applications, showing properties, managing properties, dealing with clients, owners, tenants, trades, etc. And to the point now where I'm sort of running the team. So it's been an excellent journey. It's been very interesting, challenging, and but it certainly has kept me coming back every day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And for Pemberton Homes, how long has the company been operating, and how are you doing in Victoria?
So this company has been around for a very long time. We've actually was one of the first companies on the island in 1887. It primarily started as a property holding company, real estate. There was some property management, but it wasn't their sort of prevalent industry in terms of the company. And then around sort of the 1990s, mid 1990s and onward, they started a property management division. And then it has grown exponentially from there. So it's a big part of the group now. So we've been doing property management, I guess, since about, 1993, 94, somewhere in there.
Wow, that's a very long time. But yeah, so what have been kind of your key takeaways from, when you first started and now, your role as the CEO of the property management division? Kind of what have you learned about the industry? Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting career. I think it's different than any other career because you wear so many different hats. In one moment you're just dealing with this straight up what the public thinks is property management, which is basically you find a property, you qualify a tenant, you rent the property to them, you collect the rent, and you carry on. But it is so much more diverse than that. The business has really changed over the past 17 years. I mean, when I started with Pemberton Homes, we were still listing our rentals in the Times Colonist. We had a website, but it was a pretty basic website. We didn't have any photographs of the properties we were renting. So we were doing a lot more showings because people needed to come to the actual home in order to see it. And then as the demographic has changed and there's so many more people who are renting in British Columbia, the Residential Tenancy Act has also changed along with that. So it's gone from, having hearings in person to now everything is online through the arbitration process. There's lots and lots of different laws and regulation with respect to tenants. I mean, everything from how you can show a property, when you can show a property, how you notice your tenants. And there's a lot of misconceptions that some of the private landlords have on what their role is and what rules, regulations, and rights their tenants have. So we've really seen a shift over the years. It's changed a lot.
Wow. Especially, I guess, with the last year of everything going online.
Yeah, that has been
big change.
Yeah, that has definitely been a learning curve for we've been fairly, savvy in terms of reaching our tenants online and email and, being able to assist them from the office. But it certainly has changed with respect to showings, qualifying tenants, signing agreements in person, making sure people are who they say they are. So that has changed a lot. And that's been a bit of a learning curve for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you for that. And so diving into today's topic in particular, what does Pemberton's lead to lease cycle look like? So what are the stages in converting an interested lead into a paying tenant?
So it really depends on the person. So there's no specific formula. I think that we've actually really tried a bunch of different ways to be successful in doing this to ensure that we're getting the best qualified tenant for our properties. But at the end of the day, it really depends on the tenant. I mean, sometimes the tenants are coming to us and they're really communicative and they're providing all the information we need. And other times, tenants are very busy people too, and we're going after them for information. So we've come up with a system where essentially we've listed all our properties online. Each of our property managers has a designated portfolio, so they're responsible for that portfolio and to their clients as well. So once those, if somebody's interested in a property, they can fill out an online application. Those online applications are pushed over to the property manager who is in charge of the portfolio. Then the property manager can sort of screen vet those people and advise the showing coordinator that we have these qualified tenants ready to go. And then the showings can be set up so they can see the property in person. We've tried doing some virtual tours, we've tried a bunch of different things, but I think at the end of the day, if you're moving into a home and you plan on being there for a minimum of a year, you really want to see it in person. So the conversion rate, to get back to your question, the conversion rate I would say is from actually online to converting a lead to a tenancy agreement. I would say it's probably about 5 days. I think the qualified party, if all the timing is right, we can get them signed up and ready to go in 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what have you found with like listing your listings on websites, whereas like Zumper and Facebook Marketplace? Do you think that has changed with time, whereas you have to kind of decide what to post it on, or they've kind of just stayed the same throughout the years?
Well, we have a really good marketing director who really takes care of kind of seeing where the most action is happening. And it's funny because we started out with Craigslist, Use Victoria, and Kijiji. There's a bunch of different platforms out there now. What we really need for tenants is a tenant MLS, but we don't have that. So we're funneling a bunch of information into many different websites, and I think for the tenants it can also be quite confusing as well. So now we're social media, as you mentioned, Zumper. There's a ton of them out there. Rent Board, Kijiji, Use Victoria, Craigslist, but I still find that Craigslist has been sort of our number one spot that people go to when they're looking for property right off the bat. And then we've had a lot of success outside of BC on Rent Board. So Rent Board it's hitting more of the other provinces. And then we have expanded our search to do some more paid advertising to some of the bigger papers through Post Media, and we've had some success there, but that's mostly been for our relocation services. So yeah, it's always a work in progress. We're always trying to find the best way to advertise, and social media has been a huge one as well. So Facebook and then also Instagram.
Yeah, no, as as someone who rents, it's really interesting to hear the other part of it. Whereas you get so overwhelmed with different listing websites that are, and so it's kind of, I feel like every time I look, it's a different website that I go on to find housing.
I think it's too bad because when you're purchasing a house, each property generally has an MLS number, and you can go to various different sites, but all of those properties essentially are through the MLS system, and we don't have anything like that for rentals. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of different companies out there that are trying to create a one-stop shop portal that funnels everything into one. I just don't think it's been done properly yet. And all the provinces are different. So each province that you go to has a totally different system. So I can see when people are coming in from Alberta, Ontario, Manitoba, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure. I moved from Ontario, I think about a year ago, and even finding Use Victoria was because you don't really have anything like it. So it was interesting.
Absolutely.
Um,
I was very surprised by, I came from Calgary originally too, and I was very surprised by a website called Used Victoria where you could find rental housing. Like none of that really computes.
no, and
But
you
it's
can find
there.
anything on there, but it's rare.
That's true.
All right. And in terms of kind of finding those qualified tenants, is there some sort of background check that you do?
We
And
do. Yeah,
yeah.
we do. We've been using a third party called Certain.co, which has been, I actually started working with them quite a few years ago. They're one of the first sort of AI third party tenant reference checks to come out. There's a bunch of different ones. There's Neighborly. I think there's one actually called Tenant Check. We found that we've been working with them since their sort of startup, and they've been able to manipulate and help us to ensure that we're keeping within the privacy guidelines, Residential Tenancy Act guidelines. Because we are a professional property management company, we need to make sure that all the things that we're doing align with what our rules and regulations are. So we've continued to work with them, and the applicant would fill out their application online, and then that gets sent to us, and then we can vet the application, but we still manually contact their current and previous landlord references. We double check that they work where they say they work. We do those checks still. I think that's an important part of the process as you're getting to know someone. I still think you need to have that person-to-person conversation. It can't all be done just on paper.
Exactly, right. And then contacting employers themselves, it's they want to talk to someone as well about it then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. And then my next question is, what strategies have you implemented to reduce friction in your leasing funnel? So what kind of tech tools have you used to make sure that you remain within those 5 days that you said of your lead to lease conversion?
I think just what I mentioned before, it's essentially getting that application into the property manager. We have a fairly strong administrative team that can make those calls. And then also the showing assistant really can give us a feel for the people. So when somebody's coming in to rent a property, she'll be able to say, I have a great family, or, whatever it is, happens to be, and give us a little bit of feedback just on the person-to-person interaction, and then contacting and making sure that everything else is viable. So, and again, if there's no one right or wrong way to do it, you're dealing with the human, the human factor here. So it's not, it's not just cut and paste. You really do, every situation is a little bit different.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And once these rentals have been converted, how do you ensure that you have a positive resident experience throughout their stay in that building, or especially through maintenance issues and things like that?
Yeah, so when I originally started in this career, because I was a property manager myself, I knew a lot about managing properties and some of the pitfalls that I came up against, and some of them were, doing the inspections on time to satisfy your client's needs, to make sure the property is being well taken care of, dealing with the maintenance, and dealing with the showing. So traditionally, the property manager would do all of that, which was a lot. And so as I kind of grew into my role, I wanted to create something where the property manager had a lot of backup and a bit of more of an infrastructure, which actually directly translates to a better tenant experience. So if they're contacting the property manager and saying, there's a couple issues at the property, the manager isn't physically having to make all those calls. They can call our maintenance coordinator, and the maintenance coordinator can take it from there. And there are a lot of different maintenance issues that come up, everything from hot water tanks that are starting to expire and need to be done, gutters that need to be cleaned, towel racks that have fallen off, gate latches that have come that are not secure, trim that's missing, dishwasher that's leaking. There's 1,000 different things. So if one person is dealing with their client, tenant, maintenance, showing, it's way too much, and there's no way you could do a good job. So what we've tried to do is streamline that, so there's a lot more infrastructure, so that the property manager is dealing directly with the client, the tenant, and then relying on the rest of the support staff to help make the tenant experience better.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful to hear. And I assume there are a lot of issues that come up, just as, just as any building. It's just, Speaking from experience.
Oh, yes.
Um, and speaking of, resident experience, it's also important to touch on your relationship with the owners,
Mhm.
and how do you maintain a positive relationship with them?
I think that communication is really important. We One thing that we're very acutely aware of is the dollars and cents of it all. So ensuring that owners and clients are aware of what's happening with their property at any given time, communicating with them, contacting them when there is an issue, and not leaving it to be a surprise when their financial statement comes out. We do have a buffer within our management agreement that says we can spend up to X amount of dollars before we have to contact them. But when it's a new client, until that relationship has been created and there's some, everybody feels comfortable and there's a trust there, then we do contact them about everything. And that's really important right off the bat. The second, and that's one of the most important parts, but the other really important part is to be very, very upfront and transparent about the rental experience. So if you are pitching a property to somebody and they called you and asked you for their services, you go to their property and you look around and you can see that they're either very emotionally attached to the property, or that a rental experience might not be a good experience for them, is being very honest about that. We do a lot of third-party management for single family homes and single stratas. So we're not just dealing with apartment complexes. Sometimes we're dealing with somebody's family home or somebody's childhood home.
Wow. Yeah, it's very true. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, that was my last question. Thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me. And thank you to whoever's listening or watching this. You can find this video and the transcripts at www.lethub.co/podcasts. And that's it. Is there anything you'd like to share on your end?
No, I think that I really appreciate your time today, and I think that property management is a really untapped career choice. And if anyone is ever interested in getting into it, it's very dynamic, and every day is different. And it's something that I've been doing for a number of years, and I've never woken up in the morning and said I don't want to go to work today. So it's a really interesting job. If you like to solve problems, it's a great career. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.